Well, I suppose as we got a whoop for my C.r.a.p box, we may as well put it together. So let's start off with what we've got. So we've got our little brushless flight controller. And I'm guessing it will go in like so, with the USB port being the back. And then in here we have, get myself a little tub, we have some rubber grommets and some screws. So I'm guessing if I just take this off, the grommets will go in like so, and yeah, you will just kind of push them in like so, and then get the other two on. Just press them over here, shove that one in, and then we'll do the same with the last one, which I'm probably going to have to immediately take back off again before I solder, but I just want to see how that goes together. Right, if we look at this little guy, we've got ground 5-volt RC in for your receiver, and we've got ground 5-volt video out and video in, and then we've got TX1 there. And on the underside there's sort of 4 pads running along here, which are 5-volt for the buzzer, LED strip, buzzer minus, and 3.3 volts I believe. And on the other side you've got a little tiny sort of boot pad, and we've got motor 1, 2, 3 and 4, which if we turn it over means that it's in the correct orientation. So what I'm going to do now is just solder up the pads that I'll need, and in fact what I'll do is just take this off, and I'll also solder up the pads that I might want in the future, just because it's easier to solder these things while you've got them out than it is when they're in the quad and you decide you wanted to add an LED strip on later. The reason why you get you get actually a number of different connectors depending on your battery type, but if you know from my previous videos, I'm not a huge fan of these, so what I'm going to use is just a JST connector. If you want to use these, knock yourself out, millions of people do, but I prefer a JST because that's what all my batteries have been converted to. So I'm going to solder this up now. Alright, bear with me, you won't be able to see this, but I can. So I'm just going to solder up and tin up these little pads. You don't need a lot of solder because we're only talking about little tiny wires, but I'm just going to solder up everything that I think I may need at a future date. And that was TX1, So if we can, we'll use that for smart audio, but I don't think we'll be able to do because we're using a separate receiver. And as I said, even though I'm not planning to use these pads, I think it's just good practice to tin up anything that you may have a use for at a future date. And certainly if I do any more whoop racing, I'll probably add some LEDs on. So as you can see, I've now tinned it up. Right, they did mention this to me, and I think that's will be fixed in the version that you get, but on mine it doesn't show you which side is ground and VCC for your battery leads, but I've just quickly checked and VCC is on the left and ground is on the right. So all I'm going to do is, let's have a look and see. So we kind of need our leads to sort of come round this point and then down. If I can find some of my JST connectors. So I kind of want to work out how long I want this to be. It doesn't need to be particularly long, but I like to have a little bit of slack to play around with. So I'm just going to cut mine roughly here. Can always shorten them later if they get annoying, but I'd rather just leave them a little bit longer at the minute. Just to get this build underway, and then we'll just strip off a little tiny bit of the end wire. Don't need a lot. Give them a twist. Then we'll tin them up. That's all we need, and we'll get our little board. Get my lucky blue tack, which has been with me since I built my first quad. Just give it a little press, doesn't need to be in there particularly hard. And then, as per usual, I can't find my tweezers because I'm a scruffy swine and always just leave stuff scattered around. Right, got these tweezers. These aren't the ones I wanted, but they're the ones I found, so it'll have to do. So I kind of want a little bit of a bend when I'm doing this, because I need to go around that soft mount. It's just right, so that's one. We'll do the same on the other side. That's two. Get these back in again before it gets too cold. Get my multimeter. Check for any shorts just before I test this board. See if I can get them in here. Right. So that looks relatively okay. Right, just before I go any further, just want to plug this in and make sure everything is okay. Which it is, because we've got a nice red light and no smoke. So let me just disconnect that, and then we'll put it, bollocks, don't say I can't get that through. We'll put it in here, make sure it fits. So it's best to get in first. Sorry, I can't see what I'm doing when the camera is in the way. Let's get this down here. Right, so that's in. Probably should have left a little bit less bend on those wires, but it will do the job. I kind of need to look and see how this canopy goes together really before I do anything more. So this looks a little bit like the one from the UK 65. How the bloody hell does that go in there? Right, it looks like, oh, it looks like this basically just sits in here, like with the round edge. Where's the holes? Like so. I'm guessing screws directly into the camera, which will presumably hold it in place. I think this is just, I'm hoping it's just what it was held together with in the factory. So what I'm going to do is get out our camera and see what the score is. So there's our little camera. I need to turn the heating on in my garage. It's bloody freezing and my hands are really cold. Getting a bit cack-handed. Where's the... ah, there's the hole. Right, so if I just hold that. Right, that was pretty fiddly, so I did that off camera. But essentially all you do is take a couple of these little black screws, slide them through to connect this little camera port to the actual frame, and then essentially the screws just hold against the lens part of the camera, and then you've got a little bit of tilt on the camera. So this is basically the same as the Snapper 7 or the UK 65, which is clearly built by C.r.a.p model as well. So now we've got that in, we've got 4 wires here. So all we essentially will be doing is wiring in the video and then using the longer screws to screw the canopy to the frame. So as per Unmanned's instructions, what we want to do is work out which of these is the video on here, because on their instructions we're not really sure which is which or which ones we should be using for this guy. So what I'm going to do is just snip off this connector, which we don't need. How much wire are we going to need? Not a lot really, given that's the fronts, but we're probably better having some wiggle room so we can take the canopy off pretty easily. So we'll leave these wires pretty long. I'll take them off about here, and we'll save that, because never throw away a connector, you never know when you'll need them. And then again, we're just gonna strip these wires, but in this case we'll use our fingernails just to pull the ends off, Doesn't have to be neat, you can always trim them afterwards, and then we'll tin those ends up to give them some strength. Right, so we haven't got smart audio on this little guy, but what we've got is we've got yellow, which according to the camera is video in, and we've got green, which is video out. So I'm just going to tin up these wires quickly. I'm just going to trim one of them as it's a little bit longer than we need for this little thing, and then we shall see which is which. I might have to swap these around as per Unmanned Tech's instructions. Right, just before I go any further, I'm just going to play safe and get my multimeter out again and just double check that I'm going to be soldering to the right the right pads. So let's have a look. Right, so I'm getting 4.81 from that one, which is fine. So those pads are correct. So basically, if I just show you, so the pad to the very right is ground, and the next one over is 5 volt. So we'll start off and we'll just solder our camera wires onto here. So if we start off with the, in fact let's solder them around this way. So we'll do the 5 volt first and just try and get that in there. So that's my 5 volt. Try and get that wire. There's a little capacitor next to it that I don't want to burn. A bit fiddly. Need a bit more solder on there actually. Let's put a bit on the end of my tip and then we can there, that's better. Just noticed actually I've I must have split the wire when I was doing this, and I have to take that off and shorten it, which is annoying. You see I've split, you won't be able to see, but I've basically cut the wire. So I'm just going to shorten this wire. And then tin it back up again. I don't want to short anything out for the sake of 2 seconds work. And then we'll do that again. Get my wire. And my tweezers. These tweezers are crap. Don't grip anything. Alright. We'll do that again. Alright, so that's on now. That's all good. And then they kind of said that they were a little bit unsure on the video out and video in because theirs were wrong. So let's try mine and see if I've got the same issue or whether it was just a one-off. As I said, this one is an early model. I think you'll get some more documentation with yours, but either way it's not a biggie. They're really simple little things. These we're only really soldering on 4 little wires. Right, so that's one. Do the other one. That's 2. Let's double check we've got no nasty stuff. So good. So what I want to do is just let's power this guy up and make sure nothing blows up before we go any further. Right, so that's lit up, camera's lit up, as you can see. And there's the little wires. So we've got ground, which is here, and we've got 5 volt, then we've got the yellow wire, then we've got the green wire. So I'll just get my goggles and we'll see if I'm getting video or whether I need to swap these guys around. Alright, so I've got my goggles. I'm just going to plug this guy in again. I'll search the channels and see if I get a video or not. Let's try again. So I'll just undo this. Doesn't matter if you get these guys round the wrong way, you're not going to fry anything. It's just a little bit annoying. So let's have a look. I don't actually know whether I did them the right way around anyway. I just kind of slap them on. Get hold of this wire and just unsolder him. Do the same on that one. And we'll just swap them over. In fact, I'll put a little bit more solder on this guy while I'm here. And then we'll switch them back around. So we'll try the green one. Hands today. Anything. Let's just move that green wire because it's a little bit close to the 5 volt, which isn't the best place for it to be. It's fine now, but I just don't want it moving in a crash. Right, so now switch them over again. Let's try and see if we get video now. Like all these things, it would probably be best to read the instructions, but where's the fun in that? Right, let's plug in again. Try again. Right, so I found video. you won't be able to see it, but I've got the video with 530,000 different bits on it, so that's fine. And according to my goggles, what band are we on there? So according to my goggles, we're on E7, which is not where I want to be. I want to be on race band 3. So the only thing we need to do now is put a receiver in. So that looks all okay. Probably want to twist that around a bit before we do. So now I need to find a receiver. Alright, after a bit of hunting around, I've just found, well, I'm telling lies here actually, I've just pulled this out of my cursed quad because I couldn't find another receiver, annoyingly. Usually I have loads lying around. And I think because the grommets that we're using are kind of higher than the normal ones, it kind of sits the flight controller a little bit higher up, and it leaves a space beneath that I'm wondering if I can fit my receiver under, because if I can, it would be rather nifty, because otherwise on the Mobula I found it a little bit annoying. It kept coming, well, it didn't come loose, but it kind of moved around a little bit. So kind of what I'm wondering, in fact let's try this first. What I'm wondering is, where's the pads I want to use on this guy? So the pads are there. If I stuck this in here, forget about the antennas for a minute, it kind of fits really nicely in there. How much room does that give me? And does it get in the way of anything? No, it doesn't. And this sits relatively high up. Yeah, I reckon that might work actually. So what I'm going to do, again I'm waffling away, I've got no idea whether you can see me. This isn't going to be the best build video you've ever seen, but just kind of thought it would be a little bit handy. Maybe if someone's brand new and they buy one of these kits, how you could go about putting it together. So we've got some so this is an XM Plus receiver, and the black wire on the right is ground, the red wire in the middle is 5 volt in this case, and in this case the orange wire, which would quite often be yellow, is the S-bus signal wire. So I'm just going to wrap a little bit of, in fact I want less than that, just going to wrap a little bit of tape to cover those exposed wires. The rest of it's got heat shrink on it. And then because I don't want these wires flapping around everywhere, I'm just going to tape across them. Now if you were building a 5-inch quad or something like that, you'd never want to do something like this because you're reducing your signal. But because this is a tiny whoop, or it's not a tiny whoop, a micro quad, this receiver's got 10 times the range that we actually need. So I don't really care if I'm not getting the benefit of the full diversity receivers, diversity antennas. I just want it in a way that the antenna wires aren't going to annoy me every 5 minutes, which is what they're doing right now. Let's stick them, can we stick them through those little holes in the frame? Really should get a zoom camera, shouldn't I, so you can actually see what I'm doing, but hey ho, this is what we've got. Can I squash that in there? No, I can't. So I've buggered this up a bit, so we'll have to do it that way. Come on, you've got to go in now. Don't do this to me. If we kind of press that in, yeah, that should work. Right, so I'm just going to get a bit of 3M foam tape. You don't have to do this, you can stick it on top if you want. Just from past experience I found it a little bit annoying up there. I'm just going to put a little bit of this tape beneath and shove it back in again. Squidge it down. And just fold that over. Get this wire out of the way. There you go. That. So I've got my two little receiver wires coming out the back. They're not 15 miles long, so they're not going to get in my way. And then I'm just going to stick this guy back in again, if I can. It's a little bit fiddly, this. And get that one in as well. Get that one in as well. And that should it's not going to cause any vibration, I don't think. Alright, so then we've got a nice clean surface to work on, and we've got all our little wires handily next to the pads that we need. Now again, the secret to this is don't take off more wire than you need. So I'm going to leave those long rather than cut them too short and then realise I want to change my receiver around to a different position or something, which I'll invariably do because I tend to chop and change my ideas. I like to tinker. So we'll just, I really need to grow my fingernails longer as well. So we'll just pull those out, get them out of the way of the board. And then again, I'm going to put a little bit of solder on those just to tin them up and give them a little bit of strength. Wait for my solder iron to heat up because I turned it down while I was doing this. If anybody wants a soldering iron, by the way, I'm using, don't know how you pronounce it, AOYUE, which is a little tiny soldering station. And the tips on these guys last longer than any previous soldering iron I've ever had. Even sort of the good branded name ones as well. And I think it was only like 23 quid. It's been the best soldering iron I've ever had. And tips are really easy to get. I think it's the one that was on one of Boydwell's videos actually. Not that I pay any attention, but I'm pretty sure he did a video or somebody did a video on it. Right, so again, these little stripped wires are a little bit too long. You don't want long ends, long stripped ends to wires, because what happens is they tend to break. So you kind of want them as short as you can really get away with, and that way, once you solder them, as they move around, the exposed wire doesn't end up snapping. So we've got that on here. Should give them a twist. Let me consult this manual. So we've got signal 5 volt ground. So let's do the signal first, for no reason other than it's orange, which is my favourite colour. So that's the signal. Clean my soldering iron tip up. So signals here. Let's give it a quick dab, that's all you need. Then we've got a 5 volt. A little bit fiddly this, but nothing particular. I've got the coordination of a handicapped monkey, and if I can do it, anybody can do it, especially with these tweezers that aren't actually close together. Right, so we're just going to stick this in here, solder that one on there, and then the last one we've got to do is ground. I know you can't see this, but you can kind of like feel it as we do it along. I'll show you when I've finished. I kind of slipped a little bit. Right, there. Right, so there you go. So I've got orange to the right, then I've got red, which is my 5 volt, then I've got black, which is ground, and at the front I've got black, which is ground on the right, I've got red second to right, then I've got green, and then I've got yellow, which is actually the same as the pinout, so that's fine. So I'm just going to lift this board up a little bit. Again, shove my wires down as best I can. Not too worried, these things you'll be popping them around every 2 minutes. That's just the nature of these little whoops. Make sure that board's in there. Right, make sure all these little... Right, so we're done. We've built a tiny whoop. So the only thing we got left to do is spin this round. If you wrap your cables or twist your cables, you'll tend to get less noise. So it's just a good practice and it keeps them out of the way. And then we'll fold that against itself. And then we'll sit this guy like so. Right, looks good to me. Right, and then we've got lots of different screws. Guess we've got to decide which ones we'll use. I'm going to start off with the biggest ones actually, as I tend to hate little tiny screws. I must lose more of these screws than I actually managed to fit to the damn whoops. Right, and then we'll just get the rest of these screws, shove them in like so, line them up at the side of the board. A little bit fiddly this part because you're never really sure until you hit it where the actual connector is. Right, so that's that one in. And this back one, if I remember rightly, sort of tilts the canopy a little bit. And looking at this, I have to sort of press it back a little bit to get it to line up. I'm using much bigger screws than usually actually, and that's just because I hate the little tiny headed screws that you lose all the time. I should probably use a little screw for this one, but I'd really rather not. There are little black screws. Right, for the back one you have to use the little black screw. Just get that in pretty tight actually. Let's just make sure it doesn't move, and we'll tighten these guys up a little bit at the side. We don't want them too tight because obviously they're just sat on top of the rubber, and then the camera itself is very close but not too close. And essentially, like the UK 65, it's pretty much the same frame actually, or should I say same canopy. I've got a little bit of tilt you can play with, although obviously you need to be careful of your antenna. So if I just sort of tighten my camera up a little bit, and then we have a whoop! Right, you'll notice that some of your motors have red and some of them have black, but as standard practice you'll have red and then black and then another black here and another red here. So all we're going to do is stick them in like that and then screw them in. We've got a bag of little tiny screws. Right, let's get that one in. Don't do them too tight, you don't want to strip anything or break the plastic. And the third one should be a fraction easier. Right, so that's the first one. Right, so I've got all 4 motors on and I've plugged in the wires. Just as a note, unlike me, you're probably best just to twist this little wire a little bit, and you'll notice on this particular board that one of the connectors is slightly offset. So what I would do is just plug that one in first and loop your motor around before you go ahead, because I've just had to sort of push mine and twist it in. So anyway, we're all kind of done, so let's plug it in. And we get the magic chimes. So the next part is just to connect it to Betaflight and get everything set up.